Good.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Saturday Morning Mastermind. I'm Dan Sisick. I'm acting as host again. Samantha usually does all the background stuff, and I get to be the front face. And we're in the book, Whatever Arises, Love That. I Love Revolution That Begins With You by Matt Kahn. This is the book. And we're still in chapter 4, and we're beginning on page 79 of the book. I know Catherine reads from Scrib, and she might know where that starts in the Scrib stuff, but we're studying about deeper along your healing journey. And so I'm going to let everybody else jump out and introduce themselves, and then once we're done, we'll let Catherine get started with the reading for us.
I'll jump out real quick. This is Samantha Studebaker-Caro broadcasting to you from beautiful, chilly, snowy Indianapolis, Indiana. And I'm looking forward to this chapter or this section, whatever we get to.
Cut it out. Hey, this is Jason. Jason from Tampa. Good to be here. Glad to see you, Samantha. Good to see everybody. And good morning.
Hello, this is Angel Studebaker down here in beautiful South Carolina.
Good morning, this is Catherine Clement, and I'm going to skip over to my Scribd page. So in Scribd, we're on page 91, if anybody's following us on that. And if you don't know what Scribd is, it's sort of like Audible, but it's a monthly subscription. It's a little less than Audible, and you get magazines and all kinds of different books and podcasts and like the whole package. So it's pretty cool. Excuse me. So we're starting with deeper along your healing journey. Another relieving aspect to radical honesty is remembering that your evolution occurs during every sincere sharing, no matter how anyone responds. Well, we could probably talk about that for a few hours. I'm just kidding. This is because their response reveals what is ready to be released out of their energy field, just as your willingness to share assists in your healing as well. Whether you're being triggered or triggering another, the goal is to let go of your defenses in support of the evolution of all. Sometimes the best support is letting someone else be heard. In other instances, it is giving someone the space they need. In whatever way it is offered, life's most inconceivable miracles enter your reality once you respect the healing journey that many don't even know is taking place. When a discussion quickly escalates into a heated argument, the point is not a matter of agreeing or disagreeing with anyone, or needing that person to validate your position. It is an opportunity to witness how cleverly everything has been orchestrated to inspire personal growth. No matter the situation, any sense of discomfort acts as a clear reminder that you are not being completely honest with yourself or others. That is because the discomfort represents cellular memories in need of being released that are held in a stagnant position through an aversion to honesty. This emphasizes the most important meaning of the phrase, "the truth shall set you free." There are many who desperately want to be set free, but not nearly as many who are willing to set themselves free by standing in the presence of truth. Such a truth isn't initially asking you to admit anything to others, but to answer the call of radical honesty by confessing the nature of your experiences to yourself. Once you've admitted the truth to yourself, your ability to intimately share with others, becomes far less threatening. During any moment of honesty, you can also acknowledge the important decisions you may be avoiding that remain in your best interest to follow. Even if your honest sharing brings relationships or career opportunities to an abrupt end, this is the grace of life's inherent perfection, showing you how incredible your path is meant to be once you're pointed in a brand new direction. With renewed faith in the will of the universe, the precision of integrity clears out of your way that which no longer serves you. Even if your life is turned upside down, that can only create space for greater horizons to appear. In your own unique way, you can acknowledge radical honesty as one of the most powerful spiritual practices of the new spiritual paradigm. When you remember that whatever you are feeling is healing, you can rejoice in the number of times per day you are working in collaboration with the universe to uplift the world. For many, there is an understandable difficulty in welcoming emotions that are reminders of a painful past. You can resign yourself to embracing particular feelings, but ultimately you cannot control whether or not your innocence feels threatened and chooses to hide. Despite how stuck you may feel, you are here to dissolve the veil of denial with the power of your own loving support. Whether you begin with one statement of I love you, or are able to repeat your personal love statement to yourself for a few minutes at a time, it is like reminding a child who hides in a closet that it is finally safe to come out and play. The analogy of the child is your own innocent nature hiding in the closet of your own heart. Once it feels safe to come out of hiding, you are sure to regain its trust for the journey ahead. Above and beyond any spiritual attainment, your willingness to be completely honest and loving with yourself is what reflects the maturity of an open heart. Even if you find yourself afraid to be honest, take the time to love the one who is afraid and release more cellular memory out of your energy field. Should I continue, or is that enough to chew on?
I think we've got enough to chew on for now.
Okay.
Because I think, like you said, just in that first couple sentences, I think there's a little bit we could really, get into there. And I'll start really quick. Whether it's talking about, another revealing aspect to radical honesty is remembering that your evolution occurs during every sincere sharing, no matter how anyone responds. And I know for me that there are times where I've got either something going on or something happening in my life, and that makes me feel. And for me, a lot of times, if I usually can sit down with somebody close or a good friend that I trust and share and open up, and for me, I say I need to get it out of me, and I think that's part of what it is I'm either holding it in or I'm looking at it too from such a personal point that I can't really look. I'm not sometimes letting myself look at it from all sides, even though I think I'm pretty logical and I try and look at all sides of everything. Sometimes it's just so personal or it hurts so much that if I can talk and speak with somebody else that I trust enough, they can help respond back and put out energy. And I think I pick up that energy that helps me start to look at it and change my thought process and to openly talk about it more in a realm or an area where I don't feel so afraid. And I think that's something that helps me a lot. I don't know about others, but for me, I think that helps me a lot.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying there, Dan. And like being a sounding board, I was introduced to that idea as a child. Just um, how people can be a sounding board, how it helps to have someone that can just be a sounding board. You're not necessarily looking for their their opinions or them to solve anything, but them just to be someone you can you can talk to, and they can further your thought process, I think. This idea, though, that I'm interested in this idea that of sitting in that uncomfortable space and sort of digging down into that to figure out, I guess, how to release that that energy. At least that's kind of what one of the things I'm getting out of this passage. But yes, experiencing that uncomfortableness on purpose for the purpose of being honest with ourselves. Is that what they're saying, I think?
Yeah, I think it's partly, when you are feeling uncomfortable or triggered, as they put it, and to sit within that feeling and ask yourself, what is really driving this emotion? What is it really? It's like opening yourself up to hear what's really the problem and not what you think is the problem, because a lot of times we think the problem is someone else or something else or some event or something like that, rather than looking within ourselves and saying, why am I reacting this way to this situation, to this person, to this whatever? And what does that really mean to me? I think that we struggle a lot of times in relationships in particular because we are triggered by another person, or we think we're being triggered by another person, but in reality, we're reacting because of fear of something happening, or fear of rejection, or fear of reliving similar events in, as past experiences. And when we can recognize those things, then that's an opportunity for healing within ourselves, healing growth. So for instance, if we're in a relationship with someone and the other person says something that in a past relationship meant some horrible thing was about to happen, or that person was going to, treat us in an unpleasant way, is that we can recognize that that reaction is from that previous time, and that we need to heal from that. And that this new person may not mean the same thing. They may not be trying to hurt us in the same way, if you will. So it helps us to open up and be able to communicate more clearly, rather than just instantly reacting to something someone says. Is that we can recognize, we can pause. There's that moment of ability to pause when we feel triggered and ask ourselves, wait a second, what's really caused me to have this reaction? And what am I really being bothered by versus what's actually happening?
I like the way you just said that, Samantha, because as you were talking about that, and it goes into what it was, the next little part where it says, this is because their response feels what is ready to be released out of their energy field, just as your willingness to share assists in your healing as well. I think sometimes we jumble all that together and we kind of knee-jerk react because of, like you said, something that happened to us before. But instead, if we take that moment, stay calm in that moment, listen to what's going on, and remember that this is a whole different situation, a whole different time and moment, and then opening yourself up to listen to them and what they're saying and what they're going through can maybe help you realize that, oh, that was a past life trigger thing or past relationship trigger or whatever. And in that moment, you can still, and I'm pulling a little bit from a little more in the reading where on the other pages where, that I love you, or that, or from what we learned in one of the other books, I am self-love, go back to that moment, say, I am self-love. Let me open and be there for giving them the opportunity for what they need that they might be reacting to. And it might be they're reacting to us, even though we did not mean it that way too. And sometimes, you got to go look at the whole situation for what it what that is. And remember, they're two separate instances. And how you stop and take that extra moment or that time to breathe, so to speak, breathe, take that breath, and then go, okay, this is a different moment. This is their moment. Let's be there and let's help them so they heal. And then I think almost in a reciprocating way, it kind of helps you heal too, because you're not knee-jerking, reacting, and going, you're reducing that pain from before, but you're understanding it maybe better too.
Well, I'm one of the poster childs for not reacting the way people think that I should. So I guess I was set down here as someone to do that to people, because constantly, like, because I'm so energetically sensitive and can like pick up on people the way they're feeling, I can immediately tell, like, if I'm not reacting in the way that they expected me to, which is okay. Like, I don't necessarily change my behavior based on that feeling, but I do note it. I note that they are uncomfortable with the way I reacted, or they expected something different from me. But we all kind of do that. Think about anytime, pretty much. I mean, look at all the controversy about social media and teenagers, because teenagers post something and then they expect a certain reaction. And when they don't get that reaction, it sets up for a whole thing. And that happens not just with teenagers, but with adults and everyone else. We even us with this mastermind, there's been so many times where we've talked about, taking a bunch of action steps to try to enlarge our audience or whatnot, and get it syndicated across more platforms or whatever. And then there's other times when we're like, no, it's just good the way it is. Because the more people that get involved, the more complicated it's going to be. So we kind of all sort of vacillate between, we want to help people, like we want people to participate and join us, but at the same time we have that kind of fear, or at least I do. I don't want to speak for everybody. I kind of have that little bit of fear, because I've been in other groups that have gotten super large and then they get super ruined. It seems like, I don't know, like it just seems like there's too many chefs in the kitchen or something. But I think we all, when we share something, even if it's just, well, let me put it this way, when we don't share something, which I think is what this chapter is really trying to get at, when we share something, but we don't really share like what we're really feeling, we share sort of like the politically correct version of what we're feeling, then I think that those residual feelings build up into other things. And this radical honesty that he points to, I again vacillate between being good at it and not so good at it. Some of the things that go through my mind are not things that I would want to share with anybody else. So I just kind of keep all that back in that closet, and but when I think about the things that I don't say and that they could be building up, clear communication is just difficult, guys. I mean, there's just, depending on who you're talking to, you just don't feel like you can be completely radically honest all the time, without hurting their feelings or angering them or whatever it is. You feel like they're not going to understand. And maybe that's the trick that gets played on us, because I think when we do break down and we're completely honest about the way we feel about things, people do understand. Like, we think that's the lie. We think they're not going to understand, but they do understand, because we all kind of go through these similar human experiences. Not reacting is always good, when we can take that pause, like Samantha said, when we can just pause and respond instead of react. But you don't always have time to, you got to kind of, we talked about this before, it's good to set aside a time to go back and think about some of these things, because you can't really think about them in the moment sometimes. But obviously, if it all builds up, you can't really leave it over there in the unfinished closet either. I think my unfinished closet is like shit's falling out of it,
It's like the picture of when you open that closet door and it just all comes crashing down on you, and you're like, but I was gonna come back and clean it out and straighten it up and everything. And I think we tend to not want to think about that, and we think, oh, someday I got to go clean that closet out and fix it and clear it, get things straightened up and really work on some of these things. And life kind of gets in the way and we don't do that. And then somehow the door breaks or the dam breaks, and all of a sudden it all comes out all at once. And that's when we unload on somebody, or somebody, and sometimes it's somebody we don't want to unload it on, but they get it. Or other times, I'm kind of like you, Catherine. I tend to keep a lot of stuff until hopefully I can get to one or two friends that I really feel comfortable with. And then it's like, okay, I need to talk. I've got to really, sort some things out. Or, I can be that honest with them and say, I really need to work through this in my head, and I can do that with them, but there's only like 2 or 3 I can do that with, so a lot of times I think, a lot of it gets, and I think when we have those outbursts, that's when, we've not dealt with things, and then sometimes we end up causing more harm than we do good when that happens. And then you got to come back and, like you said, come back around and revisit it later and try and get things back somewhat to hopefully where people understand that it wasn't them that was the issue. They just got the brunt of it, so they don't take it wrong. And I think we do tend to, lie and have that face mask and try and, do like what you were saying, Catherine.
I think it's an illusion to think that there's not enough time to react, and to take that moment to pause before you react. It's an illusion. We think there's not enough time because we have this like feeling that we have to react right now. We have to say something right now to whatever it is that's happening. And I've learned, Chris and I have been together now for a really long time, like 30 years now. And we've been through some stuff, and I remember back when, when we were young, and it was always a reaction to each other. It was always, no matter what it was going on, we weren't really being radically honest. We were just reacting to the other person. And even though, we would have feelings, we wouldn't share the real feelings. We would just be reactive, and like you were saying, I think it was Dan, you were saying that, when things can build up and then you kind of explode at the other person, and that can cause a serious situation. It's like back when we were younger, we'd only been together for, I don't know, 5 or 6 years. And, I'd had it, I thought I'd had it with the whole situation. And it was because I wasn't being radically honest. I wasn't being honest about what I was feeling and what I was wanting out of the relationship. I wasn't telling him what my expectations were, what my wants were, or needs, or whatever. I was just having these expectations and not communicating them. And he was doing the exact same thing. And when we kind of had our explosion and almost came apart, we were able to step through a door of healing, if you will, and start sharing more, and we're able to communicate more clearly and stop reacting as much. But yet I still struggled, for a lot of years. And then we had another situation where things added up over a long period of time because I wasn't sharing and he wasn't sharing. We were just having expectations, and then bam, I thought that we were over again. And so we had this big blow up, and then realized, oh, okay, if we still want to be together, we need to communicate better. We had to get past some of this crap that we were going through, or that we were experiencing within ourselves, the stuff that needed to be healed, and work together on communicating more clearly. And it's I wish I'd learned a lot of the stuff that we've read all of these years, before that time. But of course, that was kind of more of a trigger for me to learn the stuff. And but we can take those moments, when somebody is upset and they're getting in our face. We don't have to react in that moment. We can take a stance of, I'm assuming that whatever you're upset about is not necessarily about me. It's about something that you need to communicate that you don't know how to communicate in this moment. And I can take the stance of not taking it personally and not accepting a blame type of thing, and allowing that person to express everything, and then turning around and saying, what I think you're telling me is, or what I think you're feeling is this, is that an accurate assessment, or are you trying to communicate something else? Or, I think just allowing that other person to express whatever, even if they're not communicating it in the right way, even if they are trying to point the finger at you, you don't have to receive it that way. And we have that ability to do that. We just have to recognize that we can, in order to move forward and be able to effectively allow the other person to express what they need to express, and then be able to respond in a way that is not taking everything personally. And that's work. It's hard work. We have to work very diligently on recognizing those things with other people and within ourselves, so that we can move forward in a relationship, whatever relationship, whether it's a friendship or a business relationship, or a marriage or a partnership or whatever. Because we have to recognize that we have expectations, we have wants, we have needs, we have all of these things, and then we also have all this baggage that came before us that is going to cause us to react in one way or another. But if we can just recognize that we don't have to react instantly, and that we can open ourselves up to maybe what the other person is trying to say is completely different than what we think they're saying, and go forward from there. And sometimes when it's us who feel like we have to blow up, it's like with Chris and I, when I'm really feeling upset or frustrated or whatever, I try and let him know, say, hey, I'm having these feelings and I just need to talk it through. Please don't take it personally. Please don't be upset by the words I'm about to say. I may not say them in the right way. I may just be blah, 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 blah. I may just be having word vomit at you, allow it to pass through, and then we can work on the real issues, So anyway, that's my thoughts.
I think, Jason, you had something you were going to say before Samantha started. Did you still want to add?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for giving me a moment to come out. Gosh, so much. You guys are blowing my mind here. It's a lot of great, just a lot of great thoughts. I was reviewing last week's, because I missed last week's, and I apologize for that. I missed you guys, but I was reviewing it on our YouTube channel, which everyone can go and review and get the replays and catch up on what we're reading on here on our YouTube channel. And so what you were saying was reminding me there, Samantha, of what you mentioned about interpersonal relationships, and we could probably do a book on that someday, because everything kind of seems to kind of come back to the communication side of things. And I was just thinking about, gosh, how beneficial it must be to grow up in a large household with lots of brothers and sisters. You know, I have one big brother and that I grew up with, and I love him dearly. We're 4 years apart. We were usually not even, you know, in the same room most of the time, and we didn't interact a whole lot. But to have a large family where as a child you're dealing with, you know, all that interaction constantly, you kind of learn that. I would imagine the ability to have that interpersonal communication and deal with people not listening to you when you want them to listen to you, and you not understanding what people are saying, and then them not explaining it to you, and you having to, and then maybe along the way you start to learn how to be a better listener and to also be a better communicator. So but it you know, maybe not, but it seemed like it'd be an opportunity to at least be more used to those situations and those communications. I was also thinking about what Catherine was saying about the overstimulation of you know, and just being able to be free enough to just react, and just maybe in an unexpected way, but that it allows us to be free, and that sounds like a wonderful thing to me. And you know, it's beyond me to think that you know, you could do that and not care about how other people then react to our reactions, you know. But I was also thinking about, you know, when you're talking about speaking with people and having them trigger, and or they're talking and we trigger, and that you know, we're getting all this overstimulation, but in this day and age, we're also we don't, doesn't seem like we have much time to reflect and to expect ourselves to pause in that moment and take all of this external stuff in, like Matt Kahn was speaking of earlier in the book about how it's almost like his perception and his mind's peripheral opened up while he was having dinner, and he was experiencing everyone and everything, and understanding, like, or at least thinking about how everybody was reacting and interacting and being but not being themselves, and at the same time having this experience. And that's kind of what we're having to do when we interact with someone, and then we're in the middle of them trying to communicate something to us, and we're hearing the dogs bark and the sirens go in the distance, and we're hearing what they're saying, and we're getting triggered, and we're trying to pause and not overreact. But then and just to be able to, like what you said, you think, you know, not having enough time is an illusion, that maybe it's within us to not only give that love, but to give that time in that moment to kind of slow everything down, and then with good personal communication be able to say, like what you said, excuse me if I heard this wrong, but what I'm hearing you say is this, is that correct? You know, just to kind of be that sounding board, like you were saying earlier, Dan, so the person is heard, and that also you get a better understanding of what they're saying, rather than just go parting our ways and not, and both of us going, well, that was, I don't know what happened right there. What was the, you know? So, I mean, gosh, so much good stuff just out of this one little passage. So again, really great to be here. Thank you so much. And thanks again, Catherine, for reading. I appreciate you.
Well, that brings me to a couple things, like going back to, you know, in the beginning and some of what Samantha was saying. A lot of times when we're listening, and I'm putting quotes around that because we're not really listening, we're getting bits and pieces of what they're saying, but we're already formulating how we're going to respond, and how, because we're triggered or something and lately somebody said something one time and they made a point, and I think they actually asked me, are you listening to me? Because I was either trying to say something, or they could tell I was like you were a little distracted by what was going on. And I actually, had to sit there and think, well, have I really been listening? And somebody always, somebody else I've heard talk about where when you're listening, try and, push the distraction and focus on them actually intently and with intention. Look at them, don't be looking at your phone or looking at this, but intently looking at them, in their eyes and as best you can, and actively engaging and listening to what they're saying. And that sometimes helps stop you from getting distracted and start to have your mind race and think about all the things that you're wanting to say, because you're actively and intently listening for what they're saying. So then hopefully, to me, I've tried it a couple times, and then I could stop and really take what they said in, and then take that moment and maybe say back, okay, this is what I'm getting from what you're saying, or is this what you're saying? Am I right? And then maybe lead into what I want to respond with, but after taking that moment. And I think so much. And we're also in this instantaneous world where everything is right now and here and now. We got all these things, like you said, Jason, we've forgotten to take that time to step back, reflect, pause a moment, and really engage. Because like years ago, they didn't have a lot of the outside distractions. So when they did talk with each other, they actually were more engaged, because there wasn't any 20 million things, around them, except, maybe there was the leaves rustling, or this, or cow moving, or, something like that. But we didn't have the phones in our hands just right there in front of us or by our side, going off on, oh, I got to look at that and see what it says, rather than, staying focused. And I think that's another thing that we've let ourselves become, is so much stuff is coming in, and we're trying to process so much, that we don't fully receive what we're really wanting to receive and try and get from the other people. And then of course the wires get crossed, I guess, so to speak. We think they're saying one thing when they're really not, and we get it all like, oh, now I'm butt hurt, now I'm going to react and get right back at you, like Samantha was saying. So I think those are things that I'm totally guilty of doing myself.
Yeah, and in reflecting, remembering to take responsibility and ask ourselves, reflection. I mean, no one has any time for it, though. Was kind of my point. But in if we do have the time, to be able to to remember to say, well, I've been, at least for me, I've been trying a lot lately to take responsibility for every little thing, every issue that I have. Like if something triggers me, like, well, what is it about it that is it's me, it's not them, not trying to blame them. What part do I have in it? Because that really, to me, that gives me the control to do something about it, to have a better response next time. So I just wanted to bring that out. But yeah, I like what you're saying there, Dan.
When we're always so afraid to admit when we're wrong, or we don't want to be seen as the bad guy, or the we tend to have this, if somebody is coming at us and they're upset in some way, is that we don't want them to be upset at us. And of course, that's a natural kind of a human thing. Nobody wants anybody to be upset with them. And so, but we, instead of trying to figure out what the real issue is that we are immediately deflecting whatever it is that they're saying. And then that makes them feel not heard. And that also makes them feel like, you don't really care about them, and we have to try and remember that, okay, there's nothing wrong with being wrong, or, having an experience that it, yeah, I think that the biggest key, though, one thing it was reminding me in this chapter, or maybe it was elsewhere in here, it was reminding us about having a personal love statement that we say to ourselves. But what if, instead of, well, in addition to saying it to ourselves, is that we remember that that other person needs that too, and they're not saying it to themselves. And so when they're coming at us with whatever they're upset about, is to not take it personally, but to also, in your mind, be saying that personal love statement to them, sending out that love to them instead. And maybe even, when they're done, is just accept whatever it was they said, even if they're blaming you and you disagree with it, is to still say, I'm sorry for, like what you were just saying, Jason, is taking responsibility for whatever part you're playing in the situation, regardless of whether you agree with it. You're there, you're both there, you're a participant in this. And so you have some level of responsibility for that. And if nothing else, you have the level of responsibility of taking that situation and changing it into an opportunity to better communicate. And so when you can do that, then you can move forward. When you're just deflecting and resisting and just, and being mad back at the person, you're closing yourself off from opportunity. You're closing yourself off from being able to get to the deeper root of what's really going on between the two of you, because odds are good, whatever they're saying is not the real thing. And whatever you're saying to them is not the real thing. It's this underlying feelings that you're having that you're not being radically honest to yourself about and communicating to the other person.
Gosh, yeah, so much that so much there. But yeah, because if we're not listening, and they're not, or we think we're listening, or we're not giving ourselves time to really listen. I mean, I was just thinking about how so many times someone come to us and say something, and we're in a different mood, we're in a different state of mind, maybe we're in a good mood, and they come to us with a problem, and they go, oh my gosh, it's crazy, this is crazy. And now, hey, this is crazy doesn't really tell you that the person is upset or wants to tell you something that's really funny, or it doesn't give you an idea of what they're about to come at you with. So you might, if you're in a good mood, you might come up back at them with some flippant comment that you think is kind of funny and not really, very superficial, and thought they might get the joke. They might just storm off because they think you're not, open to what they're about to say. But it's, I mean, if we're more aware of our part in the communication, and if we have a time to reflect about it and understand, then maybe we can develop these, better communication tools to where we can take that illusion of not having the time and actually slow things down and ask them, I'm sorry, could you rephrase that? Or could you say that again? I don't think I quite understand what you're saying. Maybe ask the right questions back to them to give them a chance to even say it in a better way. They, first time, you ever said something to someone and then wish you had an opportunity to rephrase what you're saying? So give that person that opportunity, and even, ask for forgiveness right off the bat. Hey, I'm sorry, what I was in a different state of mind. Do you mind rephrasing that? So that we give ourselves some time and them some time, and then we can communicate much better, I believe, if we do that. So, but that's something I thought of while you were speaking. So thank you so much for that.
I'm jumping out again. I guess I've got lots of thoughts and ideas on this, but I'm saying something from one partially being being an Uber driver. I've had to learn sometimes where I get people. Yesterday, I had a lady that was very irritated, not with me, but with the people she was dealing with from her doctors. But I was getting the uh, blow the residual, I guess, so to speak, of it. But rather than kind of making it worse, I really didn't say a whole lot in response to her. I was giving her a lot of space to, kind of, let off the steam and the issues and stuff, and outside of that, she was also being a little more demanding on certain things. But I just took it and kind of like, because normally I would have, but I'm learning, in that aspect of, as I've been an Uber driver now for quite a while, there are times where I just have learned to not say much, which I usually is very rare because I usually have a lot of thoughts and a lot of ideas, and I usually want to say something back. So that's helped me, I think, in some ways to where, I'm learning to actively listen a little bit more, maybe not offer a whole lot because I'm not really I'm only one-on-one for a short period of time, and they're a lot of time venting, and I'm getting that. So I'm like, okay, so it's helping. I'm learning some things from this, that are helping me now in other areas. But the there it takes practice too, I think, sometimes. And then for me, I know there have been times I'm kind of like you with people and stuff that I know well enough. When I'm not in the right mode or mind or whatever, and I'm just really, I've learned to tell people, look, I'm not one that you want to be really messing with or bothering, because right now I'm not in the mood. But if you really push me or, keep badgering me or coming, I'm going to be unfiltered and I'm going to tell you exactly what I think. And I'm not going to care at that point, because then I've warned you, I've given you fair warning. And so, proceed at own risk at that point. It's kind of, and because I think that's something also to be mindful too, is if you're really there and you're really not in that mode of willing to actively talk and listen, it's best to let people know, so that way they don't come and get that full on, uh, firestorm that they don't really want and they don't deserve, because it's really not their fault or their issue. I tell them, look, give me some time. I will work through parts of it in my own head till I get to a point where then I feel I can come and talk or, share with those I want to share and say things better, but I'm not 100% of doing that all the time either, and I think that's just part of humanity, but if you learn about yourself enough, sometimes you can learn to help avoid those situations by, like what Samantha was saying, give other people that little bit of warning, so that way they know, tread lightly, come back around, or I'll come back around to you and say, okay, I'm better. Let's talk. I want to talk to you about this, or maybe I can say what I needed to say in a better way too.
Yeah. Yeah. And I like how the book is kind of directing us to think about all this as our healing journey. That we're not fixing ourselves or fixing other people or um, contorting things in a way, or but we're healing, and these are ways to heal. And I love that.
Well, we're at the top of the hour, so do we want to continue on a little bit, or any other comments, or how do you guys feel? Or any last thoughts?
I'll just say and recap, like what you're saying, knowing or learning, and healing as we learn to communicate better, and also how to communicate with others, deal with their communication, but also communicate our own feelings. I love how you like to give people a warning, the tiger's out, watch out, tread lightly, yeah, we can make things a little more fun and have a little more control in everything if we are prepared with these mantras to help ourselves along, and these tools to help communicate. And if we realize that sometimes when we're triggered, we're not being triggered by the person who's there in the moment. It's quite possibly a perception from a previous perception that we had, and digging up old stuff. As if we can share completely, instead of and also be okay with not sharing completely, that with understanding that there will be time to open up and share more. I know it's difficult sometimes to walk away and without expressing everything at that moment, but that's give ourselves that time of reflection. I keep coming back to this one thing. During the pandemic, I feel like all this stuff has sort of been amplified for a lot of people. We're stuck at home. We have no one to really speak to, and then certain topics we may not want to open a can of worms up, so to speak, in regards to certain things. And because every conversation seems to be so precious when we're not given every opportunity. It seemed like before the pandemic, it was like, oh, we have to speak with everybody all the time. There's constantly can't have a moment to ourselves. But it's like unless you're quarantined with a big family, then it's the opposite, I guess. But one of the things I realized when during COVID is that idea of, hey, not even having the time to reflect. You watch, just noticing watching a TV show. I don't know if you ever notice this, but you'd be watching a TV show and you're into it, and there's just so many thoughts that came into your mind, but the TV show is going on, and then it's right as the TV show ends, it jumps right into a commercial, and then another commercial, and another commercial, then another commercial, and then the next TV show. And you're like, and you don't get a chance to reflect on that great movie you just watched, that great sitcom you just watched. It just seems like, and then that whole time that you were trying to be entertained just seems like a blur. Well, I learned how, and this may be available on your TV. You might want to check this out. You can, for my TV that I got, and it's a smart TV apparently. You're kind of might be a dumb TV in certain ways, but you can if you press the mute button, that obviously mutes the sound. Well, on my TV, if you hold the mute button down, it then mutes the screen as well. The screen goes black. So it's like you've turned off the TV, only you haven't, it's still on. And if you press the mute button, or you press the sound button, then you have the sound, but you don't have the screen. And then you press the channel button, then the screen comes back on. And I just thought that was so great. And I've used it so much because a lot of times I will not want to turn the TV off, because then I have to go back and find the channel and do all this other stuff to get where I want to get. And because I noticed, even if I mute the sound, you still have all these flashes going on the screen, flashes of light and actions that are so distracting. And I'm sitting here with my TV kind of like off in the distance. I'm trying to read something and or listen to you guys, and if I have my TV on, then it's got this distraction going on. So hey, that's a little hack. Maybe you guys might want to try it on your TV. If you hold down the mute button, at least on my Vizio TV, it will mute the sound first and then the screen completely. And again, I've felt, and sometimes what I'll do is I'll mute the screen but keep the sound on. Like I'll mute the sound and mute the screen and then turn the sound back on and then just listen. That way I can close my eyes and I don't have all these flashes going on. So might be something you guys might help you out, might give you that time to reflect, being able to pause it or mute the screen or whatever, but during the commercials, right? All right. Well, I love you guys. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thanks for the moment to come out and speak about things. I miss you, and I hope you all have a great, wonderful Super Bowl Sunday weekend. Oh, I probably shouldn't have said that. All rights reserved. Anyway, have a great weekend, everyone. Love you.
Yes, just come to the Saturday Morning Mastermind. You'll get your fill of whatever Rises Love That by Matt Kahn, and simple life hacks that a lot of us didn't know about. You'll never know what you might find out if you come join us here on the Saturday Morning Mastermind. You can find us on Facebook at Mindset Mastery Collective. You can ask to join the group or join the group. If you want to be a panelist on here with us, you can always get a hold of one of us and we can help you figure out how to do that. You can find us on YouTube, on our YouTube channel, again at Mindset Mastery Collective. Again, like Jason said earlier, you can go there and find all the replays of all the things we've done over the years. Lots of great content there. Please give us a thumbs up and a like on all social media, wherever you find us. Anybody else have anything?
Follow us. Hit that follow
Yes.
button. No, that's great.
Yeah, and if you hit subscribe on YouTube, you'll get notified every time we upload a new video or when we have a live stream, which is pretty much most weekends. So unless we're having technical difficulties, and then it'll be a recording. That's it. Have a great week, everybody.